Hello, buddy. Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Friday, November the 7th, 2025. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week this week. Of course, we're gonna give people a chance to come in here. Um, give them a few minutes to come in. So but if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, anyways, hopefully everybody's having a good night tonight. All right. So with that, let's see now. So we're at 2.5 minutes now. So we're just waiting for people to show up. More people show up. Well, I guess I can kind of get going on. So tonight we got one article we're going to go over from Bounding into Comics. Um, then basically, new Japanese policy proposal seeks to defend creative freedom for anime, manga, and video games. So we're going to get into that. As the ever present question of censorship in the name of protecting the kids. Um, then, of course, we're then going to also talk, get all caught up on the latest in the world of professional wrestling. Look back to last night's Ring of Honor Club show. Look ahead to tonight's SmackDown as well as to tomorrow night's Collision. As of course, we will have the remaining matches in the best of three series to determine the advantage order in both the men's and women's Blood and Guts match coming up on Wednesday's Blood and Guts event, and then we'll of course wrap things up with Let's Day in Each history. So with that being said, we're coming up on 4 minutes here. I'm gonna go ahead and get started here with the article. And again, friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, with that being said, let's get started here. Let me just take care of something here real quick. All right. So, anyways, let's get to the article here. New Japanese policy proposal seeks to defend "quote unquote" creative freedom for anime, manga, and video games. Article by Spencer McCauley, published November 5th, 2025. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Offering a light of hope to the concept of creative freedom amidst the world's turns to politically motivated pyrrhonism, the Japanese government has drafted a new entertainment policy which not only offers support to the country's creative industries, but also protections against state meddling and censorship. Proposed by the Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, METI, or METI, during the 8th Creative Industry Study Group this past October. The 5 principles of entertainment and creative industry policy are a set of tentative guidelines by which the government hopes to assist the country's manga, anime, and video game industries in hitting their previously announced goal of 20 trillion yen. That's about $130 million US or Japanese yen. About 130 trillion or 130 million US dollars in overseas sales by 2033. That's based on, quote, a review of policies implemented from 2013 to 2024, insights gained from public feedback, unquote. Speaking to the results of their policy reviews, as per a copy of their informational material provided by Japanese news outlet Otaku Soken, the machine translated by ChatGPT, Medi explained, quote, during the period in which the government took the lead and strengthened support, overseas sales expanded. Although government budget projects have expanded, despite instability in analysis, indicate certain positive effects. Wage growth has remained low. Past policies did not lead to sufficient expansion of tangible and intangible asset stock and labor productivity, and wages did not improve enough, unquote. As for public feedback on their efforts, the ministry found that when it came to the government's involvement in said industry, consumers had 3 main demands going forward. Quote, refrain from interfering in or commenting on the contents of the works it supports, reduce the proportion of government support that goes to intermediaries, and increase the share that directly reaches those engaged in creation of dissemination of works. That second, reduce the proportion of government support. Let's see now. Refrain from interfering in or commenting on the contents of works it supports. Reduce the proportion of government support that goes in yeah, that one I think is the one that should grab a lot of people's attention, particularly here in the West, because basically I think what they're trying to say there, what people are saying there, is that they want the government to stop like sitting there and listening to like Sony in the West on, well, the first two obviously are for, regard more to the West attempted influence. Directly reaches those engaged in creation and dissemination of works. Taking these insights into account, METI assembled their 5 proposed principles. First one is providing large-scale, long-term, and strategic support. Identify key areas for focused support through stakeholder discussions, revise dynamically, and provide large-scale, long-term assistance to enhance business feasibility and predictability, stimulating private investment. Basically, I think what they're saying is they want to have a long-term plan for people to invest in these projects, and make them more profitable in the long run. Supporting efforts to create in Japan and deliver to the world. Support domestic investment in IP, talent, and digital infrastructure, as well as overseas investment in international distribution networks and fandom development. Not interfering with the content. Sure, creative freedom by refraining from influencing the substance of works. Yeah, I think that goes more towards the West. The West influence. I don't know how a lot of these same people would feel about like Kinnock. As you guys heard me and Metal talk about it last week a little bit, the whole idea how there was a movement to try to get more Japanese people more productive in sense of the population aspect of it by writing more stories in that vein. But anyways, as we of course continue on here. But I think that not interfering with the content speaks more to the Western's influence and Japanese. Obviously the Japanese do want, which they've been pretty good at. Like some, there are a couple of, I know Ken Akamatsu is one of them. There are a couple of mangakas who are now like diet members, who have been pushing for the creative freedom aspect. Delivering directly. Simplified policy support systems as much as possible so that stakeholders involved in content creation and dissemination can easily access and utilize them, even if they are unfamiliar with administrative procedures, and prioritizing challengers. Provide priority support for new initiatives that invoke high risk and high return. Well, these are some good business strategies that they're talking about, of course. Speaking to the desired guidelines, Medi asserted, quote, in an environment where network effects prevail and the market follows a, in small quote, winner takes all structure, where those who invest the most reap the greatest rewards, Japan must compete with other countries that are providing fiscal support on the scale of hundreds of billions of yen. So basically, I think what people are asking for them to do is start providing financial support enough to where, they can lessen the West influence. I know Yellow Flash was reporting on this a while back where there were people out in the West looking to get on some of these boards, in order to kind of influence where, anime and manga would go, what they would, kind of trying to censor the Japanese people. Quote, to achieve our goal 8 years from now, the next 3 or so years must be regarded as the decisive period, during which we will implement large-scale, long-term, and strategic support measures. In doing so, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, or MEDI, will not simply provide subsidies and end there. We will also collect and monitor data on distribution networks and works, select projects with the highest likelihood of success, and create a feedback loop to ensure the achievement of the goals. At the time of publication, the ministry's guidelines have yet to be formally adopted as government policy, as they must still be submitted to and voted on by Japan's national diet. And in this case, diet is the name for their. Now, people have told me it's diet, even though I would think that because it's a Japanese word, it'd be more like diet. But regardless of whether these specific guidelines ultimately get approved, it can at least be taken as a breath of fresh air that amidst Visa and MasterCard's ongoing denial of payment processing services to those businesses and creators who trade in quote and smaller quote risque materials, particularly Japanese ones, said media's home government is not bowing to censorship, but rather taking a stand against it. In other words, I think what you'll probably start seeing, too with this is they're going to probably start establishing their own payment processors for people to use, and get away from using MasterCard and Visa. So let's see where we're at right now here. Now that we got through that, because all right, so I might try to see if find anything else to go over here. Let's see. I don't think there's any. Let's see now. Anything new is added here. Let me see. All right, we just saw, of course. All right, so let me see. See Bleeding Fool here. Let's see. And I'm just looking for while I'm just trying to see if I can find another article because I know they'll have some time at least here. So I'll try to get one more article in here before going on to the wrestling. All right, so let's see about this one here. So Captain America kicked to the curb for diversity points. Article by Avi Green, published November 7th. Let's see what. Yeah, I should probably go ahead and bring that up now. Now that. All right. And again, friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get into this. All right, so this is Avi speaking here. This may be a storyline set in an alternate future, but according to this superhero hype Yahoo article, another leftist political metaphor has been turned out by Marvel. And then this is from the article that Avi is reading from. Thus far, the Marvel Comics event Age of Revelation has been largely focused on the X-Men. However, with the United States partially conquered by mutant separatists, one natural question um, is what happened to Captain America in this future? The answer lies in a new miniseries, which reveals one mutant hero has taken up Steve Rogers' shield and task of leading the Avengers. Written by Jason Liu, with art by Sergio Davia, X-Vengers #1 centers around a new team in the Age of Revelation. As the name suggests, it is made up of former Avengers and X-Men. However, the team lineup is not the only thing that has changed. All of the Avengers turned X-Vengers were mutated by the X virus, which bestowed superpowers on those who survived the initial infection. Hawkeye, for instance, grew 4 extra arms, while Black Widow became a woman made of living water. Steve Rogers sadly died in the aftermath of the X virus release. However, before he died, he passed on his shield and title to a hero he saw as a worthy successor. Who is the new Captain America leading the future Avengers? A flashback reveals that Steve Rogers gave the title of Captain America to former X-Men member Danny Moonstar, aka Mirage. Apparently, Moonstar was the only hero present when he made his last stand. Despite this, nobody among the Avengers doubted her word when she said Steve Rogers gave her his shield. Unfortunately, some Americans were less accepting of Moonstar's taking the mantle than the former Avengers. However, following an altercation at the memorial for the victims of the X virus, the rest of the team are quick to assure her that she is doing Steve Rogers proud, not only in leading the team in battle, but also in giving inspirational speeches whenever one is needed. All right, so now Avi's going to respond to that. We're going to get Avi's response to what we just read there, which is always interesting to see what Avi has to say because he is quite he is quite biting with some of his commentary here. Previously, when Steve was marginalized as part of the woke diversity pandering, so this is Avi speaking, it was for the sake of putting a black man in the Cap costume, despite Sam Wilson have flight power, despite the fact that Sam Wilson has flight powers and going by the nickname Falcon. Now, after it became clear that wasn't working, so they concoct a story where a woman takes up Cap's mantle. This, despite how even Moonstar's powers are hardly a good fit for how Kirby and Simon created Cap for, or how created Cap for in the Golden Age, which was an acrobatic fighter, but hardly somebody with more elaborate superpowers like Danny's or Falcon's. And then they make quote unquote some Americans look like they're hostile to the whole idea of a woman or an Indian descendant taking up the role. And the writers continue to obscure pressing issues in real life that could make far better metaphors than this. Comic book also sugarcoated the story and exploited it for the sake of making the USA look totally evil in how it approached Indian inhabitants. Again, that was Avi speaking. Now referencing an article from Comic Book here, his article from releases. Over the years, we've gotten numerous Captain Americas, but there's something about Danny Moonstar that just feels right in the role. To begin with, she's Cheyenne, which makes her more American than basically anyone else who has used the shield. The United States history with the various native tribes is monstrous, despite them just wanting to live their lives the way they always have had. Giving a native the shield is something very special, and Danny is a perfect person for it. Now, this is Avi's response to that, to what was just stated there. This of course ignores that even Indian citizens of the past didn't have a clean record when it came to issues like slavery. And what proof do they have that the USA was inherently evil toward the Indian inhabitants? Wasn't the Dakota War of 1862 a disturbing moment begun by Indian tribes like the Sioux? Sure, there were other tribes like the Apache who may have been uh, decent, if not perfect, but none were saints any more than the white descendants of Europe who populated North America. So that was Avi's response to that. Now, I guess back to the article he's referencing here. Danny has always been a great hero, but has never really been allowed to grow to the level she should be at. There's a common problem with the New Mutants. Nearly every member of that team has basically stayed static for years, despite the best of them being some of the coolest mutants around. Danny was always positioned as the best member of the team and could have easily become the next Cyclops. However, she always seems to be an afterthought, which is why it's so great that X-Vengers shows that Cap believed in her. Danny has always deserved better, and hopefully this will be the first step that will lead her to stardom. And this is Avi's conclusion on all this. Well, I'm sorry, but all this doesn't make for a talented story. And the political structure this one's built upon only ruins everything. Even if this story's an alternate reality setting, that doesn't excuse the political biases and Marvel's continued obsession with far left propagandizing isn't salvaging their comic franchises at all. Danny Moonstar may deserve better, but so too does Steve Rogers and even Sam Wilson. If they're not willing to craft a story that doesn't rely on the cheapest of modern political cliches, that's but one reason why this story also rings very hollow. Wow, quite a damning statement there he made. Quite a damning statement he made there. All right, I think we got time to at least try to get in one more article here before we move on to like the wrestling. Well, actually, with where I was wanting to try to, let's see. Yeah, I think we'll try to get one more in here, and then we'll get to the wrestling wrap up. Yeah, this one should actually be a quickie, as far as I know. Skybound's Transformers debuts surprise character to the Energon universe. Article by Victor James, published today. So let's see what's going on here. Oh, look at that! Look at that classic right there. You got Optimus Prime in the middle there. You got what looks like Wheeljack and Trailbreaker on either side of him. It's been a while since I've reviewed Skybound's Energon universe, but Bleeding Fool has picked up the slack with updates in my absence. The reason I have not reviewed Transformers in so long is because, well, I wasn't that impressed. Oh, so is this a review? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, if this is a review, then actually, I'm sorry. I don't really do the reviews. I don't really. I just simply thought this was going to be an announcement. So I think I will go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up then, because I usually won't do the reviews. Because they in themselves take a pretty lengthy time to cover. So, anyways, so all right. So with that, we're gonna move on to the wrestling wrap up then. So we're gonna look back, of course, to last night's Ring of Honor show, as well as look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as of course, and tomorrow night's Collision, as of course WWE is building towards has started the process of building towards Survivor Series, and there is some talk that one of the things I did see on some of the news reports today is that they're going to probably start a quickie program between Aleister Black and Cody Rhodes to set up a match between them two for Survivor Series, possibly. But I guess we'll wait and see there. We'll look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision, as well as, of course, they're building towards this Wednesday's Blood and Guts event, and then Full Gear on the 22nd, a week before WWE's hey Bone TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Yeah. Thank God it's freaking Friday. I guess would only be what you were saying there. All right. So, anyways, as we get ready to get into the wrestling wrap up, let me first go look back to last night's Ring of Honor. Last night's Ring of Honor show from last night. Take a look at that. On last night's Ring of Honor, which came from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag titles were on the line, as Shane Taylor Promotions of Shane Taylor and Infantry of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean, with Anthony Gogo in their corner, retained the titles over Beef and the Workhorsemen of JD Drake and Anthony Henry. In another six-man tag match, Sky Flight of Scorpio Sky and Top Flight's Martin brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, with Christopher Daniels and Layla Gray in their corner, defeated Matt Menard and the Kingdom's Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. In a tag team match, Don Callis family members Lance Archer and Hechicero with Rocky Romero in their corner defeated Orion and the OXP. In a women's tag match, Yuka Sakazaki and Alex Windsor defeated Robin Renegade and Taya Valkyrie. In a quarterfinal match in a tournament to crown the first women's pure title, Diona Perazzo, the Virtuosa, defeated Trish Adora in that matchup. In a mixed tag match, the Death Riders team of Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta defeated the team of Angelica Risk and Aaron Solo. And Satman Singh defeated Gino Adonis in just under 2 minutes. In another tag team match, the Swirl of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson defeated the team of Willie Mack and Alex Zane. And then the main event saw an proving ground match for a chance at the Ring of Honor Pure title. Commander came to a draw with a 10-minute draw with Lee Moriarty, earning a shot at the title. So Commander will get a shot at the pure title sometime in the coming weeks. Alrighty then. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece of. Well, let's see. Now that we've got that, let's try to see if we can find a way to look ahead to tonight's WWE action. So we're going to look ahead and talk about what's happening on tonight's SmackDown. As the SmackDown brand will start to pick things up to start building towards Survivor Series coming up on the 29th in about 3 weeks here. So coming from the Bon Secours Wellness Arena in Greenville, South Carolina, on the USA Network, match is already signed for tonight. Ray Fenix will take on the MFT's Tala Tonga. Charlotte Flair, one half of the women's tag team champions, will be taking on Nia Jax in a battle of two former WWE women's champions. Julia defends the WWE Women's United States title against former champ Chelsea Green. And Ilya Dragunov will once again be issuing an open challenge for the United States title. So quite a bit going on there tonight, seeing how things will build up. So that's all we got for that. So now let's look ahead. Of course, look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision. See what they got planned for tomorrow night's Collision. AEW's tomorrow night's Collision on TNT, I believe. Yep. Coming from the Bayou Music Center in Houston, Texas. As I said, you'll have the remaining matches in the Blood and Guts Advantage best of 3 series, as you'll have of course the second and third. You'll have the second and third matches of the women's best of 3 matches, in which Jamie Hayter will be taking on Sky Blue and Tekla will be taking on Harley Cameron, and then you'll have the final match in the men's best of 3 series to see who get the advantage in Blood and Guts coming up this Wednesday. Roderick Strong taking on Jon Moxley. Let's take a quick peek at what's going to be going down on this Wednesday's Blood and Guts. See if they announced any matches for that. And also, of course, AEW has Blood and Guts. The Blood and Guts episode of Dynamite will be happening at the First Horizon Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina. The women's Blood and Guts match. We'll see the teams that we'll see on one side. Marina Shafir of the Death Riders teaming with Megan Bayne, AEW TBS champion Mercedes Moné, those three, and the Triangle of Madness of Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Tekla, taking on the team of Harley Cameron, Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, Mina Shirakawa, Tony Storm, and so in the past, Blood and Guts has been 5-on-5, but in the women's match here, it looks like it's going to be 6-on-6. So that's going to be quite a interesting. And then in the men's Blood and Guts match, Darby Allin, Roderick Strong, and the Conglomeration all team up. Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Kyle O'Reilly to take on the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Jon Moxley, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta, and then in a non-title Falls Count Anywhere match, Hangman Adam Page takes on the Ops Powerhouse Hobbs on that day. So that's all going down this Wednesday, of course. Normally I wouldn't go over cards that far in advance, but figured since they're setting all that up, figured we might as well. All right, so we're done with the wrestling wrap-up. So what we're going to do now, of course, is now we're going to, today is Friday, November the 7th, 2025. So we're going to take a look back at this date in Nietzsche history. So 185, 2020, and 2000. All right, so first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago, as on this date, 40 years ago today, back on November 7th, 1985. What was known then as WWF, what we know of today as WWE. WWF, World Wrestling Federation, held its first ever pay-per-view on this date 40 years ago today, the Wrestling Classic. Now, most people, of course, think WrestleMania 1 was the first ever pay-per-view, but that is not the case. WrestleMania 1 was actually done on closed circuit. Now, closed circuit TV, what they would do is they'd rent out a movie theater and then broadcast the event on the big screen, on the movie screen. But the Wrestling Classic was actually the first ever WWF pay-per-view. In fact, you could even argue it's the first wrestling pay-per-view ever. I don't think that was true, but anyways. So on this day in 1985, the Wrestling Classic was held at the Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois, obviously given Chicago. Basically, it was the matches were primarily a 16-man tournament, with in the middle of it a world heavyweight title match between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. Obviously, we're not going to go. Obviously, it's just So basically, in the night there, Hulk Hogan defeated Roddy Piper by DQ to retain the WWF Championship, and then Junkyard Dog was the one to win the tournament over Randy Savage by count in the final match. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the Wrestling Classic, first WWF pay-per-view, was held. Now moving on to the year 2000. On this date in the year 2000, Madhouse's Reign the anime movie from Madhouse's anime movie Reign the Conqueror premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2000. So 25 years ago today, the premiere of Madhouse's anime film Reign the Conqueror premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2000. Reign the Conqueror was a movie based on the life of Alexander the Great. So there you go. Now moving on a year to the year 2001, as soon as we get all this taken care of here. So 24 years ago today, in the year 2001, as soon as I pull that up. 24 years ago today, the 185th issue of Archie Digest magazine went on sale on newsstands on this date back in the year 2001. Sold for $2.19 and was 96 pages. So the 185th issue of Archie Digest magazine went on sale on this date back in the year 2001, 24 years ago today. And finally, we move ahead to the year 2020, as soon as I, of course, get out of here. On this date, 5 years ago today, premiering on Disney Junior from Guru Studio and Chorus Entertainment, the animated series Pickwick Pack premiered on this date in the United States on Disney Junior and on Trios. On this date in Disney Junior on this date back in 2020. Pickwick Pack is an animated television series for preschoolers that debuted on Disney Junior on this date back in 2020, 5 years ago. All right, so with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here we'll be back here on Sunday as Metal from the Vomitorium will be joining me, as we will be looking at comics that went on sale back in July of 1940. We'll be focusing in on MLJ Enterprises, known today as Archie. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday.